was gonna do an introduction. I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome to Behind the Dance. This is episode 4. I'm here with my man Power Serge. Serge, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Sergio Suarez, also known as Power Serge. Yeah, we're gonna do this.
So, where are you originally from, born and raised?
Yeah, so I was actually born here in San Francisco. My family's from Nicaragua, so I'm like first generation. Like I said, born here in San Francisco. Around like 2-3 years old, we moved to the East Bay. And so I primarily grew up in the East Bay, but for the past, I would say 7 years, I've been living here in San Francisco again, which is kind of funny because I'm like down the street from where I was baptized, like
That church.
Yeah. You guys can't see it, but it's literally right there. So, yep.
Tight. And what dance crews do you represent?
Yeah. So, Beatz and Pieces, I think we're going on 16 years. There's another dance company called Dynamix that I represent. And then I just represent myself.
Nice. And how long has Beatz and Pieces been around?
16 years now.
And
yeah.
How did that start?
Yeah, it was so I had already been dancing at the time 10-something years. I started dancing like 94, 93, 94. So that puts me at like 25, 26 years, right, currently. So I was very particular in who I would potentially crew up with at the time. And so, there was a cat by the name of Jason Eigelhart who I went to high school with, and we were just always kind of like the pair. And I attribute a lot of my, success and to him just because he was older. He was like a senior and I was a freshman, but he'd always kind of take me along. And so, kudos to him. But at the time, I think it just came down to like the guys I was just kind of practicing with, and like I said, I was very particular about who, like.
And which were those guys that you were practicing with?
So at first it was Jason. It was just kind of me and him, just because like, I don't know. It was really weird kind of in this time in the 90s, It was like there was already established crews. And it was like if you weren't in those established crews, then it was just kind of like you're just the outsider.
Yeah, I know how that was.
Yeah.
Everybody had their own like practice spots.
Yeah,
everything was like a secret.
Exactly. So we weren't necessarily invited to nowhere, So it was just like, all right, whatever. Later, I met Isaac, Precise, Jamar, and they were all aspects, but yeah. So they I don't know if they were in transition. I don't know what was going on, but. There was a couple key things that had happened that like kind of
brought you guys together.
Yeah. And so I think that if those things didn't happen, I don't think we'd be a crew.
So is that how you got the name Beatz and Pieces? It was like little bits and pieces of different things.
We were just from different parts of the Bay. We were different crews.
That's dope.
Yeah, different energies, and we just started vibing, and like I said, there was a couple events that happened where we competed that was like, yo,
we are a crew.
But what does that mean? What does that even look like? What does that even mean for us moving forward? And so to reestablish something when some of us had already been in other crews, we I was, like I said, I hadn't been in a crew yet, and I just was like, no, whichever that is, that is it for me.
So 16 years ago, that was what, like early 2000s?
2003.
Okay. So yeah, there was like a transition of like when nobody was part of like multiple crews, people were just one crew.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of the norm.
Dang, that's tight. And you guys are still a family today.
Yeah. And people will be like, well, I've heard some of the younger guys like, oh, y'all inactive. I'm like, yeah, we're super active. We may not be competitively active, but I mean, we're all everyone in the crew still holding it down some form, some way. In regards to hip hop. So.
That's what matters. Like you don't have to actually be competing.
Yeah.
So you said you started in 94, started dancing in 94?
Yeah.
What was your first exposure to dance?
It really, so I grew up so I'm in South Hayward.
Okay.
And I've been exposed to it. My older brothers, I have 2 older brothers who are like 10 and 13 years older than me. they were part of that 80s wave.
Oh, nice.
You know, and they had a crew in the 80s. It was like Galaxy Strutters, you know. So they were like, and so that was my initial introduction. But I was just too young to really even
like understand it.
Yeah, to really get it. And then it was not until like maybe 5th or 6th grade, which I'm still hella, you know, you're still hella young in 5th and 6th grade, where I started seeing a couple of it was like a couple of Filipino boys, kids that were like during recess would just kind of do some flips and stuff, and it just, I don't know, I just was drawn to it. I was like, what? And so that was my initial exposure to it. I also had a cousin who was a DJ at the time. Nice. He was older than me, but he was like, you know, he was like on another level. Like I'd go over and he was, you know, schooling me on like some Zulu Nation and
dang.
Like,
so he was part of the culture. Like
he was, and I just, you know, being, you know, shoot, I don't even know how old you are in 5th or 6th grade. You're not even pushing 12 or 13. You know, like you're kind of you're just a young kid. And so I had a couple introductions.
Nice.
And so once I kind of caught the bug, my oldest brother, he was like, you need to watch Beat Street. And so I was like,
so that's kind of like where you really started as a dancer.
Yeah. And then it wasn't until like maybe 3 years later, like 97, must have been like 96, 97 when literally I had my cousin, she lives in San Jose. She was like, yo, there's a B-boy jam.
Oh shit.
You know, and I was like, how am I gonna get to San Jose from Hayward? You know, like Bart didn't even go that far then, you know, like
it still doesn't go that far.
Yeah. You know, then didn't even go to, like, I think he went to Fremont, but like didn't go past that. So like I had to just kind of like beg a couple people. And so I ended up getting there.
Nice.
And it was Best of the Best.
Ooh.
You know, and that
Best
was
of Best 97.
Yeah, 97 or 96. It was the one, it's the one
Is
where...
that the Style Elements versus Renegades?
Yeah, where Jazzy J takes off the helmet, he's head spinning, takes off the helmet in 2000. I mean, it was like, I was mind blown. That was the first time I had actually ever seen like flares in front of me and like, you know, floor rockers and flea and sway and.
But you hadn't even like tapped into like trying to do anything like that yet.
I just hadn't been exposed to it. You know, at that time I was just still like moving my own furniture. Like
so, like me and like Black, we had watched like Out from Fame tapes and try to like mimic stuff.
Yeah.
And then our first jam was like some jam in Stockton, and it was a crazy jam because it was the time first time I ever seen Machine, first time I ever seen Raging Bull, first time I ever heard of DSD1 or Flexible Flav. But like, at the time, you know, it's like, we were like, yo, air flares is like the craziest thing. And then I walked into the room and I was like, yo, everybody in this room has air flares. What the fuck?
That's how it was for flares. You know, I was like, what? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And the energy was just like, man, it was just thick. And it was, you know, for that being my first jam, and like jams back then were like 10 hours.
Yeah.
It was like double elimination. You know, none of this like, all right, 1, 2, 3, you're done. No, there was like a double elimination.
You had another chance.
Yeah, so that just went out through. It was just b-boying, b-growing like throughout the entire day.
That's insane. And I can't imagine being at a jam for 10 hours. I mean, like freestyle session is pretty long.
Right. Yeah. So imagine that.
Dang. So after that jam, did you start to like teach yourself, or did you have somebody teach you, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was just all accessibility, you know. A lot of the cats that I had approached then, you know, I mean, I was still a youngster. And I'm talking like everyone, all of your OGs today, like they were all there at that event. You know, I still remember the faces. I still remember the interactions. But, you know, it's just like, I didn't necessarily have like parents that were going to be like supportive. Like they were like, yo, nah. You better go hit them books, you know? And so I didn't necessarily have that support. And so in a lot of ways, me and Jason were, you know, there was other B-boys too, but we at that time, we were just kind of like...
Each other's motivation.
Exactly. You know, like I witnessed this. Now I need to go...
Do something about it.
Yeah, how do I even... Who you know, like, I think this is how you flip. This is how you know... and so I just kind of took whatever I had. Like there was nights when, if you grew up here in the Bay, Friday nights, well, I mean, there was the Wake Up Show, and that was like it was on the radio. It was on 106. And so
Sways, right?
Sway, King Tech. And so, you know, they would drop gems sometimes. You'd be like, oh, what? The other times it was like Yo MTV Raps on Fridays. And so sometimes there was like music videos where there'd be like little clips of breaking.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was like, there was no YouTube. There was no...
And I didn't have YouTube, but I had a VHS recorder, and I would sit there and record some shit push pause,
Yep.
play, slow motion, break that down.
yeah. And so it's kind of like from like 96 to 99, it was like trying to any type of information or VHS cassette.
Anytime you had like some type
was,
of exposure to it, you're like,
I gravitated towards it because it was like, cool, like this is how I'm gonna get better. But I do feel like at that time I started creating my own style.
Nice.
You know, just because I didn't have influences.
Yeah.
And then in like, I would say my sophomore year, I must have been literally like 97. Still like same year as that Best of the Best event. Jason went to some church dance, and I believe he met Bionic Man.
Oh shit!
You know, John.
Dang.
And so something happened, and they were like, "Let's battle."
Oh
and
shit!
So Jason then later comes back, and he's like, "Yo, I met this Filipino cat, and we're gonna battle." And I'm like, "Today?" He's like, "No, not today, fool. You know, like in a week or something." And I was like, cool, where? And they were like at Weeks Park. And Weeks Park was literally where like that was my go-to spot, you know, just because I needed space. And so I was like, all right. And so, you know, it's like it's like winter. It's like it's raining, it's like cold, it's like, you know, 5 o'clock, it's already dark. And it's South Hayward.
So did Bionic show up with Rock Force?
Well, here's what happened, yeah. He did. And so, you know, and at the time it was like me, Jason, this cat named Steven, Tony Bo, just literally all black and brown brothers, you know, we were just like 5 of us. And my younger brother and Ulysses. So it was like 6 of us. And so walks in, like we see a couple cars pull up and like it must have been like 10 Filipinos. I don't know. They just came deep. You know, we're like, yo, what's up? But it was super cool because, you know, it was the first time for me at least that I got to experience that.
Having to battle on your own.
Yeah. And I mean, that was like a 2-hour battle.
Shit.
Yeah. It was like,
I mean, like crew on crew.
Yeah. It was like a 2-hour battle. I mean, you know, in retrospect, I was super toy, you know, like I didn't understand the concept yet.
Of battling,
just because I've been exposed to it, but not like,
just
like
little
this,
parts,
you know? And so in terms of like having someone say like, yo, that's not yours, you know? So like, of course, everything that I had was a bite.
Yeah.
You know, like I mimicked whatever I had just because I had no, we had no elders kind of be like, yo, man, no.
Yeah.
And so it was a 2-hour battle. I mean, we got smashed, of course.
Yeah.
And the kicker was like later that year, I literally remember going to walking to school and like, you know, looking. There was like this newsstand, and I was like, "What?" You know, I grab it. I somehow jimmied it, grab a newspaper, and it's like Bionic Man, you know, John on the front page.
What was it for? Was it for Battle of the Year?
Yeah, they won Battle of the Year. You know, and I was just like, what?
This is a guy that I just battled.
Yeah, we just battled these dudes, and they're world champions, you know? And so for us, it was like, yeah. You know, it was like high fives all around.
That's tight.
Mainly because, we were stoked. We were like, dude, if we practice harder, you know, like we become world champions, you know? And so that just kind of set like, Rock Force really just kind of set the bar. You know, they set the bar, you know, and
that's
so,
dope.
Yeah, so that it kind of like, it was kind of taken from there, you know.
So following that and like after, you know, getting that experience and probably hitting the lab after that, right? Like, what were some of your inspirations to moving forward in your dance like career?
Yeah, I always, you know, I remember that Best of the Best, and it was a lot of power, you know. That's kind of what I mainly remember most about our scene back then in the 90s.
West Coast, yeah.
And but there was a couple cats that were like just kind of doing it differently.
Okay.
You know, and for me it was 2 brothers. It was Sway and Flea. You know, and I believe I think Flea was like Renegades and I think Sway was Floor Rockers, or they both could have been Floor Rockers. But, you know, it was like Sway's footwork, man. You know, I was just like, whoa, wait up. You know, because at the time, people were like taking off shoes and like flares and like, you know, it was just like it wasn't a weird time. It was just, that's just what it was, right? But for some reason, he just rocked a little bit different. And so that was always kind of embedded in me. later in high school, I went to some smoke shop, and they had this VHS tape, and it was like a battle from Canada.
Oh,
and
shit.
so I was like, yeah, here's
That had like Boogie Rats on there.
I don't know if they were around yet, but it
Okay.
had guys like it had Bag of Tricks,
Okay.
Intricate, and so this was like the Toronto scene. And in that tape, it was all footwork. Like there was just guys just kind of like bugging out, and the energy in the room, like they were doing simple just like freezes and texts, you know. It was just like mind blowing at the time, but like the crowd was like, bah! And so I was like, yo, okay, like. And so I think that those were some of my first attractions to the dance, was like literally footwork.
That's dope. So the next question that I have for you is, what does dance mean to you?
Man, yeah, that's
Because you've been dancing for shit, probably as long as I've been alive.
You know, yeah, that's a good question, and I still grapple with that today. You know,
Oh,
what
yeah.
does it mean to me today? And
I'm sure your
so-
definition has changed over time.
Oh yeah, and well, I hope that it does for a lot
Yeah.
of folks. What it meant for me then was, and you know, at the time I didn't understand. You know, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the systems in place. You know, like there was a lot of trauma that I was experiencing. You know, like I grew up in South Hayward. I got jumped into my first gang at like second grade. I had
Dang.
family members that were into that life. You know, my siblings, my older brothers. You know, there was like cops kind of around a lot of times. There was just a lot of trauma that as a kid, unfortunately, I just didn't really understand how to grapple or man, you know, really
Yeah, yeah.
truly like, how do I even discuss this?
Yeah.
And so, trust me that when I would step out the door, I had to change. I had to be like, okay, you know, I have to be, and this is I have a teacher now who kind of brought it to light. He was like, you know, a lot of us back then, you know, who grew up in these type of circumstances, it's not like we go 0 to 100. It's like you're already at 90, you know? And so like any little thing, you're like, what? You know, you square up
Yeah.
real quick. And so I was like, yeah, dude, like that, it was like, I was on constant defense. As soon as I would step out of the house, it was like, okay, you know, or am I going to get jumped today? Am I going to be like, and then like being from Central America, my Spanish was a little bit different from, you know, just from the Mexican Spanish, you know? And so it was just kind of like triggers there, you know? And then, so it was just, I was always kind of on the defense, you know? And so with breaking, it's like, it was literally how I could just be like, okay, let me attack this, how I attack just life.
So it was super
You know?
influential in your dance.
Yeah, it was healing, you know? In a lot of ways, it was how I healed. It was how I expressed. It's how I unpacked that trauma, you know? And so that's now I understand that. You know?
So your definition now of dance.
Yeah, it's still how I heal.
Nice.
You know, with the rigors of life and the pressures of being, you know, being in a capitalist society. You know, it's crazy that like when I was growing up in the 90s, like that's when they initiated like a 3-strike law. That's when Proposition 21 took place, you know, where it's like, yo, you do any crime, yo, it doesn't matter if you're 14, you're gonna get tried as an adult.
Yeah.
And yo, man, like I got all these pressures, like, yo, for me to come out of that unscathed is like, I'm like baffled, but I attribute all that to hip hop.
Nice. That's dope. That actually answered the next question, which is your passion for dance. Who do you credit that to?
Yeah.
But you pretty much answered that with hip hop.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't know if there's key people, you know, who I was like I said, initially my cousin who was a DJ, my oldest brother William, who introduced me, you know, to Beatz, the VHS tapes. So it was like just little nuggets that they kind of gave me that like once I was on board, I was like I was gone. You know, I'm like down that stream, just like yo, eating it up. So.
Nice. So with the healing and where you are today, you know, one thing we learn as dancers is to give back, right? So and I know what you have, but tell us about your ways of giving back to the dance community or community in general.
Yeah. So it's So I had a good run, you know, I would say in like the early 2000s where like I did get flown out to a couple things.
Competitively,
I got won a couple battles. and so it's kind of living that life, you
Yeah,
know, in a lot of ways. And so there was, I guess, a couple things. There was a jam in San Jose. And so when you start going, you know, when you start getting on the circuit, you know, you just start seeing certain people time and time again, you know. And so there was a couple times I had run into Ness. He had come out here, and you know, and he kind of just dropped it on me. He was just like, "Yeah, but what are you gonna do for hip hop?" You know, and that to me just kind of like was like, you know, because I was like, "Oh yeah, what?" I needed that. I needed to hear that, but I also needed to grow, you know, and that's kind of the thing about jumping on these circuits is that you're just kind of seeing medals and you know, cash, and you know, like it's like you're seeking attention, and I needed to, in a lot of ways, just come down to earth. And so when I would go on these trips, every time I'd come back to my struggle, you know, and that's where I was like, okay, well, you know, Ness was like, well, what are you gonna do? What does that look like? And so my experience of like when I come back, yo, I'm still struggling, man. Like, yo, you know, my mom's still working. You know, my dad's. You know, there's just the jobs. Like we weren't rich, and so I was like, but I get these opportunities to kind of travel the world and
shine.
And yeah, you know, and so that's where I was like, okay, I really need to do more, and hence we created something called All the Way Live. Initially, All the Way Live was a means for me and RJ it was just a fundraiser, you know, and and you know, it was like for a trip to the Philippines or something like that, and that helped as well, you know. There was a trip called Journey to Origin that Dennis Infante, I think they were called what is it?
Dennis's crew?
Yeah.
Oh,
Chain Reaction? But then they switched it to what were y'all called?
Locking Crew, right?
No, well, they were Chain Reaction. They were.
I don't know. It's Choreo Crew.
Yeah, it was a Choreo Crew. Yeah, sorry guys, my bad. I'm so sorry, Jr. You know, Red. You know, but so I went on this trip with them, and it was like, it was really on some humanitarian. It was like we were going into these barrios and going into these schools and just kind of like, you know, working with them. And so that to me was like, yo, if I could do that out here, why can't I do that back home?
Yeah.
And so at the time, RJ was doing Supreme Soul, ABDC, and I was like, yo, do you mind if I use the name All the Way Live? Yeah, you know, and so just because when we initially started the idea, it was a fundraiser to do some good, you know. So I was like, I want to continue that good, you know, and so 2008 is when it kind of kicked off. And I mean, at the time I was already doing after school programs and stuff like that, so it was just a good transition.
Nice.
And so those, again, I needed to kind of experience those key things to kind of,
and 10, 11 years later you're still doing it.
Still.
So you have All the Way Live coming up later this year, right? For Fremont or Ohlone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on Fremont.
And that one's, you're looking forward to doing more than just the battles. I saw that you were going to have panels.
Yeah. I mean, we've always been wanting to do those. You know, I remember some of the earlier summits, B-Boy summits.
They have those.
They had panels, you know, like you'd show up around noon or 1, and there was like a couple panels. You sit down, you know, listen to your elders, get gamed up. And, I think
that's dope for like the community in general.
Yeah. You know, we need space to discuss, you know,
and express in a different way.
Yeah, and to conversate. You know, like I said, if all we're doing is just, you know, paying your $20 and just battling, and that's great. But at what point do we step back from that and say like, whoa, let's build. Let's discuss what's happening. Let's slow down for a second, and you know, let's marinate on what's currently going on. Yeah, you know. So we've been wanting to do the panel, and this year is the year that I'm hoping we're gonna pull the you know, we're gonna do it. So
nice.
Looking forward to it.
Dope. My next question is, do you dance for a living?
I did, you know, in a lot of ways, I guess I do today too. Not financially, but more for just sanity. Yeah. You know, and I'm really glad that I had that as I did dance, you know, in my 20s, just because it allowed me. It was like fluidity. It allowed me to still provide for myself. It allowed me to still travel. It allowed me to go to school, you know. So it was just fluidity wise. Like it was, and you know, obviously, like that's the benefits of dance.
Yeah.
To relieve some stress. So yeah, in a lot of ways, like I needed that in my 20s. Now in my 30s, you know, I just do it just for health reasons, for mental reasons. So yeah, it's like I still, in a lot of ways, still dance for a living.
Dope. So throughout your dance career and experiences, were there any other creative outlets or hobbies that you had outside of dance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super multi-layered, you know. Obviously, I have turntables here. I don't know if you can see them, but so music's kind of been like a big thing I mean, I've always been into music. I'm also, I mean, I do have a lot of passions. You know, I love to swim,
Nice.
love to run. You know, currently I'm really big on education. Like literally, I think I go to some kind of panel or discussion like once a week.
I've been seeing that in your
Yeah,
stories. Yeah.
yeah. You know, mainly just to, I guess, validate what it is that you know, my own
That you're
views, my own
pursuing.
values.
Yeah.
To just kind of hear different perspectives. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. You know, I mean, I definitely love to learn. I just want to grow. You know, I do feel that, you know, as humans, you know, time is limited for all of us. And I just want to make sure that I just use that time to just be the best human as I can be. Love spending time with my family.
Dope.
You know, so.
To add to the previous question, since what do you do now as a career?
Yeah. So a couple things, actually a few things. So I'm currently in school again, which is crazy. So I'm currently a doctoral student at Cal State University East Bay in the Educational Leadership and Social Justice program. It's a 3-year program. I'm about to wrap up my first year. And so I'm very into, again, kind of what I was saying earlier. I'm into social justice, you know, ethnic studies. But in terms of career, right now, I work at Ohlone College. Been teaching there since 2008. And so I got hired on pretty young.
Yeah.
And so, so I teach. I also have co-direct All the Way Live Foundation. I'll also have a production company, Creative Grounds. Probably don't hear a lot of it now because a lot of our work just comes from referrals.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we've been doing rocking that for, again, 12, 13 years. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Do you attribute all of like these things that you do professionally to or connect it to your dance?
Yeah, in some ways I do. You know, don't get me wrong. I think hip hop in general just kind of opened doors for me, you know, in terms of just moving ahead in life, you know, going to school. I got a bunch of like scholarships, so I was able to attain higher education, and a lot of it I would say was because of those travels and me being a professional dancer back then. And so it just kind of opened doors.
Yeah.
And so knowing that if it were not for those experiences, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's another reason why it's important to me to continue giving back.
Yeah.
You know, hence why I'm like, at this point getting a doctorate, just because I feel like I just need to be equipped.
Yeah.
You know, as a Latino, as a man of color, unfortunately, like, yeah, I can bark, but like you need teeth in this society, you know? And unfortunately, like, just having those sheets of paper, I just know, yeah, will help. And so if I am to create change, unfortunately, I just need to play the game and unravel it from within.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I hear that, because especially like me working with Gabe, who's also an educator. Yeah, he's doing the same thing. Nate.
Yeah.
And so what is next for you in your dance life?
Yeah. It's crazy because like for right now, currently, like I'm more on the educational side of it, and I just use dance as a means to just heal myself and just kind of like just, unpack the everyday stresses of life. But knowing that, kind of seeing what's happening with the scene now, how we're pushing gold medals, and it seems like I also want to fight for the fact that, before that's cool, but we also need education too.
Yeah.
And it goes down to everything that we're seeing, things are getting glorified, movement and followers, and that's being glorified. And it's just like, but do we know that hip hop arts and education isn't even, it's kind of pushed aside, and so I feel like there's although we do know that hip hop has this huge social capital, yet when it comes to academia, it's like we're still kind of like on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And so how do I bring validity to that? And so there's a lot of folks, pushing hip hop in academia, but a lot of them are through a lens of an MC, and so I just feel that as a breaker, that our voices need to be heard too, and so I'm more pushing for that, in terms of, and I'm always going to dance. Anyone wants to battle, let's go. Let's do this. But if
unless you're wearing your Jordans,
then I'll take them off. But for the most part, if anyone wants to, we can go. We can do rounds. But for the most part, that's kind of where my fight is right now.
Dope. Thank you for being part of this interview process and sharing your story, man.
Yeah.
You can follow him at
the Power Serge. THEPOWERSERGE.
Dope. Sick.